Hey, welcome to another Khan support video. This one's on signs of expressions challenge. Let's go. So let's just that there. Okay, let's go. So basically, you're looking at this stuff and trying to decide if it's going to be a positive answer, a negative answer, or zero. Now, zero to any power other than one, well, actually, zero even the first might be zero. But basically, that's still under debate. The zero to the second is definitely zero times zero, which is zero, right? So when you're looking at these three factors, you have one factor that happens to be really a value of zero. Well, zero times anything is zero, right? So this is an easy one. That's just zero. Okay. The next one, you got f to the third times negative g to the third. All right. So on this one here, what you want to do is you want to just figure out whether f is positive or negative. And so we're looking at this situation here. We can see that 0 is below g and f. So that means that g is somewhere between 0 and 1, and f is somewhere between 1 and 2, right? So all you really need to pay attention to here is that f is a positive, and so is g. So you have a positive to the third power, and you're multiplying that by g, well, actually it's negative, and then g is a positive, right? Negative times a positive. That positive is all of that, right, is being raised to the third power. Okay, so really that's kind of the idea of the signs, right? You get a positive value to the third power times the opposite of a positive value raised to the third power. And when we look at that and we try to figure out what it's worth, right, negative times a positive is going to be a negative, so that's going to be a negative to the third power. And this is going to be a positive to the third power. So a positive times positive is always positive. So that's going to end up being a positive value. And a negative times a negative times a negative is going to end up being a negative value, right? So really what we have here is a positive times a negative, which always ends up being a negative. So this one's always going to be a negative value. So what you can write is negative. Okay, let's do the next one. So on this one here, it says negative 4x times y times 0 to the 6. It says that x and y are positive numbers. Okay, fair enough. It doesn't really matter, though, because you're multiplying them by 0 to the 6. Now, anytime you have 0 to the 6th power, that's just 0 times itself 6 times, is going to be 0, right? So that means that negative 4x, whatever that's worth, times y, whatever that's worth, is then times 0. And anything times 0 is going to be 0. So this is just going to be 0. On this one, we have to think about it very carefully. Now, when we're looking at this one, it says negative 3. And I'm going to put this in a different color, the 3 in a different color, okay? Because the negative is not being raised to the 40th power, but the 3 is. So 3 is your base there. The negative stays out in front. 3 to the 40th power would be a positive value, right? Okay, very large positive value. But you have a negative in front, so this is going to end up being a very large negative value. So this whole thing is going to end up being negative. You're then going to multiply this thing by 5.6 divided by 2.1. Now, 5.6 divided by 2.1 is a positive divided by positive, which is going to be a positive value. So whatever this is, it doesn't really matter. It's going to be a positive value. So what do you end up with? You end up with a negative, right, times a positive. Well, what is a negative times a positive? It's always going to be a negative. So the answer here is going to be a negative, right? It doesn't really matter what the values are. We're just trying to figure out the signs, right? And so we know that this first value is going to be negative. We know the second value is going to be positive, and a negative times a positive is always a negative. This is a negative answer. And that's how you do it. So it doesn't matter about the specific values. You're just trying to figure out what's the sign of the answer. All right, hopefully that helps.